budget right now, we would be cutting the equivalent of, well, two more of those support positions out of our schools. Special ed, we've talked about, improving our special ed, and I think we're going in the right direction there. This budget cuts out three positions that supports special ed. So clearly, we're not supporting the progress, in our directive to improve in that area. And then the third thing that Dave just said as well is, we are cutting more now. Our language program now in 7th grade would go away, in addition to everything that's been cut in the past. The thought of having 100 kids, I don't know if it's accurate, I don't know if that's what it would come to, but the possibility of having possibly 100 kids a period sitting in a study hall at our high school, to me is just absurd. I mean, I don't think it's what anyone would want a child to go to school for, let alone where do we fit them and who watches those 100 kids, because we don't have that in this budget. So I strongly could not support this cut list. I do think there's someplace in between. I do think it would be very difficult in my heart to cut any of these things. And quite honestly, I mean, I made this comment a few times and reading it again over the last couple of weeks. Once you get past, I haven't even counted how many are all together on here, but the first 4 or 5 or 6, I mean, I don't know how you go there. And certainly once you get to you start cutting things out of our high school, I mean, I think it's crazy. So we're going to have some strong, some tough conversation right now on what we think is appropriate to cut and where we find this middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, if I can say as a student,
absolutely.
But I mean, a lot of students have obviously been talking about it, and I think that's scary. The most scariest to us is like the electives being cut. You look at the photography and all that, the whole lab being cut, and the industrial. Those are the two big blocks of electives. A bunch of classes that students really get excited about. I've taken them. I love them, and I really feel a lot of students, and to not have those would be a scary thought for future students.
We would be teaching the basic core subjects and study hall.
Yeah,
But I mean, he's our customer, and
Absolutely.
listen to what he's saying.
Well, I can tell you, I've had the same.
Right.
I've talked to a lot of my sons and their friends,
Yeah, definitely.
and I'm hearing the same thing. Like, don't cut the business program because,
Yeah.
that's one of the classes that they want to take. Or don't, you already cut foods. Don't cut the lifelong fitness and some of that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that the kids like to take, but I think they're an important part of the rounded student.
Yeah, it's obviously important to have the math and science, but there's a lot of these classes. People really see what they want to do in their life because of these individual classes. I know my brother with the journalism class. He wants to be a journalist now because of that class, and to not have a lot, the CAD lab and the photographies and video classes, it really affects that well-rounded student, and scary.
Go ahead, Ann.
I just have one thing that I want to just circle around that we've talked a little bit about with special education and the number of cuts that we're talking about and the 3 positions. What we can't lose sight of is the progress that we've made in bringing and establishing these new programs and the investment that we've made to really try to bring these students back. And with that said, we had a reimbursement rate, I believe when we started out in 10 maybe, of around 70%, 72-ish.
Yeah.
And I think we're down to 38% right now.
That's correct.
So it's really important that we maintain this initial investment we've made in the programs for many reasons other than the financial reasons. Foremost, that the children can actually go to school in the community they live in.
Georgetown has lost approximately $400,000 over the last 2 years in the reduction in circuit breaker.
So that's
It is the right thing to have kids go to school in their town.
So it's,
And by the way, it also saves us a lot of money to have them do that.
and it's appropriate
It
for
is
them
appropriate, absolutely.
to be here. So I really think it's important. If you can hold on just 1 minute till we circle around, then we'll open it up for questions. Are we going to proceed, do you think, with now coming up with a number? Is that?
I think we should come up with a number and then look
I open that
at,
up,
because now we
definitely.
have this whole stack of fees, right? This
Right.
is the fee pile. I'm sorry, this is the hidden tax pile.
But wait a
It's
minute.
the parent
Can I
tax.
just
The parent
I
tax
just want
law.
to explain one thing though. Athletics, right, athletics will be completely 100% funded. There's options for how you wanna do that, and so guys, here, be prepared to talk. But the issue of bus fees, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, we've done a lot of iterations of
Before we
this.
get into fees, can
I
I
know,
just?
but I
no,
just
no.
wanna
Oh, it
explain
goes
something,
together,
'cause I-
okay.
It goes together. The bus fees, remember we had, the principals submitted a certain amount of information to us. That was higher than level services. When we came to you as a school committee, you asked us for level services, and you described what you wanted, and we gave that to you. Included in just being able to get to that figure was the assumption that we were going to have $46,000 in bus fees.
Right.
So this list
So-
assumes that's already
Right,
done.
you start changing the fees, we add on to this 879. This is all fees in,
Well, if
all-
you
With
decide to take fees out, it means $46,000
Goes-
needs to come back on.
right.
that needs
So
to
the
come onto
879
this list.
becomes 9 something.
That's an assumption we made based on a previous
920
conversation that
something,
went into
whatever it
level
is.
services.
So we wouldn't see a bus cut off of this
You
list.
wouldn't, that's why you don't
There would
say it,
still be a bus, but covered by fees.
right?
Well-
Or one or the other.
One or the other.
Right.
Right. Of 46,000.
So we're gonna talk about something that is already built into this budget,
Okay.
and then we have to decide if it's right or not, and if we don't agree with it, then
It's gotta come out.
it's gotta come,
Correct, and you will need to find that $46,000
we'll need to find it.
someplace.
So it's the same with the athletic revolving account too? So the
Well, that,
30,
there's, no,
No,
Well-
we took that, we saved a
Well,
teacher with
that's
that.
off of, but
Yeah,
that just comes off
essentially-
of choice, because that was in choice.
That's no longer in choice,
We
but
saved a high school
Right.
teacher with that.
Right,
Yeah.
but you're correct in that what we are using is we're using the money that currently goes to support athletics,
yep.
To support a staff.
to support a staff person.
Okay.
I'll
Complicated,
entertain,
but it's
why
just
don't we
fun.
go back to the questions from the public, and we'll try to do this as seamlessly as we can. Michelle, did you have, if you're gonna state your name and address for the record so Laura can get it into the,
Michelle Smith, 5 Pine Lane. Just in talking about the electives, you know, in addition to kids finding things that they are interested in doing or may not be interested in doing, I think that some of the cuts that you guys were talking about for electives could actually affect kids getting into certain colleges because they're not gonna have those electives that colleges are looking for. And that's an important piece that I think a lot of people should know as well.
very good point. And I'm sorry, you had a question. If you can just state your name and address so Laura can get it.
Sure. Joy Bonavita, 7 Bernay Way. We represent the preschool level, and I want to thank you for bringing up the school choice point because I just want you guys to be aware that in these numbers you have 92 students being represented in kindergarten last year. 30 to 35% of those right now are looking at other schools. And I think it's really important that you guys know that number because it's very legitimate.
Great, thank you.
Which translates into about $150,000 in round numbers that the town would have to bear some additional expense.
With minimal or no cost savings.
Say what?
With minimal or no cost savings.
Correct,
That's right.
If they were all to find schools to accept.
correct.
Right.
I can't
Although
imagine
even a
it's
school
gonna
choice.
be that easy.
At the elementary level, that's probably easier than it is at the high
That's
school.
where we have our openings. Yeah,
Kindergarten's a little tricky because not everybody does
full day,
Correct.
right, okay.
And that's, sorry to just
No.
follow up on that because I know that discussion was happening. It was moving to a different school being school choice or going to private
Yeah.
if
Right.
necessary. So,
The impact to the budget
Correct.
would be, a school choice would be
Yes.
impact. If a parent decided to go to a private school, that's not an impact to the budget. It's a loss to us in terms of an enrollment number.
Right.
And certainly, we don't wanna lose children who live in Georgetown from our district. Everybody's important, you know,
Right.
but it wouldn't be as much a budgetary impact.
And it would impact chapter 70 and.
Right.
That's why I said
It's a
the enrollment
chapter
number for
70
chapter
number.
70.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And put on top, you know, the high school, we make these high school cuts, we'll have the same thing in 8th to 9th grade, affecting our chapter 70 as well. I mean, we hear all sorts of numbers of people looking at private schools for high school. They certainly seem a lot higher than they have in the past, so.
Right, as we said, none of us like any of
It's a
these,
snowball effect
right?
all the way through.
Right,
We
it's-
No doubt.
think we need a level services budget, that's what we think we need.
Well-
There's two things though you have to think about, one's accreditation and the other is time on learning. Because one of the things we have to be mindful of is that we have to provide 990 hours of instructional time, and that's defined by the states. Study halls do not count as instructional times. So what we've been doing is, as we've been thinking about putting schedules together for next year, or even looking at next year's calendar, we're counting, what is going to count as time on learning, because you can't not meet time on learning. So time on learning is a factor. If we put, even if we, Peter, what were we talking about today? If we put every student in one study hall?
Would be 28 hours below the minimum requirement.
That sounds about right.
Right.
We had
5.5
done that
hours a
roughly
day.
yesterday.
So,
Yeah.
will you figuring 6 hours a day?
But 5.5.
5.5 hours a day, so you're talking about a week. So that's just something to
Yeah,
be mindful
right.
of. It's just, and then the other thing is the accreditation, lady from the accreditation, wasn't able to meet with us yesterday, but has rescheduled for the 8th of
I will
March.
make that, by the way.
And the purpose in having her come is for her to talk to us specifically about our situation in Georgetown. I did ask her in an email if she would consider perhaps coming and doing maybe something at a tri-board meeting where it could be looked at as a community. What's the value of accreditation? What happens if you don't have it? What's going on in Georgetown that would make them worry about downgrading us, and what would it take to improve our status? And she didn't rule that out. She said, we'll talk about that when she comes, but she is coming on the 8th. I just want to make you aware of that.
Well, that's a good idea, that
I won't be
the
there.
boards.
We talked about that yesterday, so that everyone can get educated on what is accreditation and why do you need it, or why is it important?
Right. So we're trying to do as many things as we can to kind of get information and try to get to a place where we're not acting on assumptions, but we're trying to get as many factual details as we're able to.
Right.
The real important part, though, for this discussion and supporting level services to some degree, or wherever
Or
middle
something in the
ground,
middle,
or
yeah.
something in the middle, will be some of the answers that we get. They might say, hey, you do this, 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 you're gonna jeopardize your accreditation. So we're hoping to get some good solid answers.
So we need to know what those answers
I
are.
mean, any cuts to middle high school, I think, are not going to improve our situation.
Right.
No.
No.
We can say that pretty.
But I want to make sure I understand this. So to be level services, we're adding $872,000. Plus, we're going to have this fee tax.
Correct.
That's what I put it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we don't want that, remember the number we've been working off of all along, right? $1 million, right?
Yep, it's a million.
That's what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
it's
I mean, if you go,
assumed a while ago, and we haven't gotten to it.
Remember,
I've been
the
waiting for
structural
this day.
deficit of the stimulus, the
This meeting.
$1,026,000,
Yeah.
we said was a structure, the reason we got that money is because we were at foundation. We were
Right.
gonna go that far below, so we are skating at the very, very floor. And so that $1 million is gonna be a structural deficit till we figure out some way to fill the gap, or we cut it.
Can we go over the fees? Let's go through
Yeah,
the
but we should-
revolving account. That tends to be the more sensitive
do you want to
topic.
have Guy
add
and
to the
Peter
fund.
come? Do you have Guy and
So
Peter
Guy and
come?
Peter, you wanna come up?
Mary Ellen.
Or Mary Ellen, whoever wants to come.
Athletic.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna push Dave.
Thought you'd never.
No, we have the white people.
No, the important thing with athletics too is that part of this goes into our, into the accreditation, like
Yes, this feeds into it
criteria
too, yeah.
and things that they evaluate. And one of the things that Peter pointed out, is that they do look at the fees that the parents are paying for athletics. And I think if we're not at the top today, we will be at the end of this
So
discussion.
Hamilton went in this fully funded, right? Are they corrected?
You'll never be like
Are they on probation? They're 100% fee based.
They're
They're
not on probation or warning.
they're on warning?
They're not,
No,
neither.
Not on probation,
They're-
not on warning?
Yeah.
Okay.
They-
But I don't know where they are in their cycle. So
That's right.
they may.
They could have passed the fees right after they had their last meeting. Yeah.
Don't they
Okay.
have a requirement to notify NEASC of substantial changes?
Substantive changes, right. Okay. Guy, what's the best way to do this? Do you want to walk us through where we are on the athletic
Should
revolving?
we just start with what the projected
Yeah.
fees
Here,
are
it's
to
on
be?
the-
Yep.
it's on your memo.
Sure.
Absolutely.
The public doesn't know about that.
Guy put a
No, I don't.
memo in your packet outlining what the fees would be for next year.
So maybe Guy, just start with your memo and for the
Okay.
public's purposes.
It's analysis of the entire budget. I've done this every year, and it's a breakout of fees, for all the sports, and then it's cumulative, so you can see the actual, total results. So